Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive with us. Today we're going to be talking about something I know a lot of you are really curious about,
Yeah.
and that is using cannabinoids for sleep.
Mm-hmm.
It's having a serious moment right now.
It is.
But I gotta say, in doing the research for this one, I went down a bit of a rabbit hole
Yeah.
of fascinating and honestly, sometimes kind of surprising information.
It really is a more complex story than just like cannabis equals good sleep,
Totally.
which is why we're here to
Exactly.
kind of break that down.
Yeah, to separate the hype from the hard science, right?
Yes.
We're going to be diving into how cannabinoids, things like THC, CBD, how they actually affect our sleep, especially when it comes to specific sleep disorders.
Yeah.
Buckle up because it is way more nuanced than I certainly thought going into it.
It's true.
Yeah.
And I think, it's important to remember that research in this area is still like evolving.
Yeah,
There's a lot we're learning, but some of the findings are actually like really exciting.
totally.
I was-
So to make sure we're all starting on the same page,
Yes.
why don't we do a super quick refresh on just how sleep works in the first place?
Oh.
Talking about those crucial sleep stages
Mm-hmm.
and the chemical messengers in our brains that control them. Things like GABA, which, helps us power down for the night.
Exactly. And this is where it gets really cool because our bodies are actually in on this whole cannabinoid thing already.
Oh, yeah.
We have this incredible system called the endocannabinoid system,
Okay.
or the ECS,
Okay.
that naturally produces its own cannabinoids.
Wait, hold up. Our bodies make cannabinoids.
They do.
That's wild. What is that about?
Yeah, so think of it like our own internal system for like fine-tuning a lot of things,
Okay.
including sleep.
Okay.
And it involves these receptors, mainly CB1, which is primarily in the brain,
Okay.
and CB2, which is mostly in the body. And they act like these little docking stations for cannabinoids.
Okay.
And when those receptors are activated,
Yeah.
it influences, how we sleep, among many other things.
Okay, so our bodies are already using cannabinoids to regulate sleep.
Yes.
But what happens when we're adding external cannabinoids into the mix? Are we messing with a carefully balanced system?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's something that researchers are definitely actively looking into.
Okay.
But I think a good way to think about it is like this. Your body's natural cannabinoids
Yeah.
are kind of like a perfectly calibrated dimmer switch
Okay.
for sleep.
Okay.
And when we introduce these external cannabinoids like THC or CBD,
Yeah.
it's kind of like we're messing with that dimmer switch.
Gotcha.
Sometimes it helps and sometimes it throws things out of whack.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
It's not as simple as just adding more of something that our body already makes.
Yeah.
It's about understanding how those external cannabinoids are actually interacting with our unique systems.
Totally.
So
Yeah.
speaking of those external cannabinoids,
Yeah.
let's talk about the stars of the show here, which are THC and CBD.
Yes.
They both come from the cannabis plant, but their effects are definitely not the same.
Exactly. Yeah. THC or tetrahydrocannabinol, that's the one that gets you quote unquote high.
Okay.
It primarily activates those CB1 receptors in the brain,
Okay.
which is what leads to those psychoactive effects.
Gotcha.
Whereas CBD or cannabidiol is non-psychoactive.
Okay.
It has a more complex relationship with the ECS, acting on both CB1 and CB2 receptors,
Gotcha.
but in different ways.
Okay, so THC makes you high, CBD doesn't.
Right.
But how do they actually impact our sleep?
Yeah.
So let's break it down, starting with THC.
Okay, so studies have shown that THC can actually shorten the time it takes to fall asleep,
Okay.
which can be really tempting for those nights when you just can't seem to drift off.
Yeah, it's like fast tracking to dreamland.
Yeah. Initially, at least.
Initially.
Okay.
But, and here's the catch.
Okay.
Long-term THC use can actually lead to tolerance,
Okay.
which means you might need higher and higher doses to get that same sleep-inducing effect.
Oh, wow.
And then, kind of ironically, chronic use might actually disrupt sleep in the long run.
Oh, no. That's not what you want to hear if you're thinking about THC for sleep.
Right.
How would it make sleep worse?
So think of it like this.
Okay.
THC might help you fall asleep faster at first,
Okay.
but over time, it can actually decrease slow wave sleep,
Right.
which is that deep restorative sleep that we all crave.
Yes.
And on top of that, it can increase what's called WASO,
Okay.
which basically means you're more likely to wake up during the night
Yeah.
and have trouble falling back asleep.
Right. Not a recipe for a good night's sleep.
Not ideal.
No?
Not ideal.
Yeah.
And it's not like you can just pop THC every night and have perfect sleep forever.
Right.
Like, there can be.
Yeah, definitely not a long-term solution necessarily.
You know, what if you build up that tolerance and then you try to, like, stop taking it?
Yeah, exactly.
Then you're hit with, like, withdrawal.
Yeah.
Insomnia, not to mention, like,
Yeah.
the vivid dreams sometimes.
Oh, tell me about it.
Nightmares, even.
Yeah, that is not fun.
Not fun at all.
No. So we got to be careful with that stuff.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's about, finding that balance, right?
Yeah, it's all about balance, I think, with everything.
Yeah.
So we talked about THC.
Yes.
But what about CBD? CBD, it's everywhere these days.
It's everywhere.
It's like this miracle sleep aid. You see it marketed everywhere. What's the real story there?
Yeah, CBD is definitely having, like, its moment.
It is.
And there is some early research that hints at potential benefits,
Okay.
but we need to be cautious about overstating things.
Yeah.
For example, some studies have shown that CBD might actually increase total sleep time.
At least in, our furry little friends.
The rats.
The rats.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, good for them.
Good for them, right?
But I need some of that. I need to get on the rat plan.
Right. We need the human studies to catch up.
Yes, exactly. Because I need my sleep.
Yeah. But one thing we do know
Yeah.
about CBD that could be playing a role here is that it's a very potent anxiolytic, meaning it's really good at reducing anxiety.
Okay, that's good because who amongst us hasn't lost sleep because of an anxious mind?
Right. Anxiety is like the ultimate sleep stealer.
Yeah.
So
sure.
Since we know that anxiety can be a major sleep disruptor, it makes sense that CBD's like calming effects could indirectly lead to better sleep for some people.
Right.
It's not necessarily directly knocking you out, but it's more about like creating the right conditions for sleep to happen naturally.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. It's like how, if you take a hot bath or read a book or something before you go to bed, it's not putting you to sleep, but it's creating that environment where you might be able to fall asleep a little bit easier.
Exactly.
So I got to ask, though.
Yeah.
What happens when you mix them?
Yeah.
What happens when you mix THC and CBD? Do they work together?
Right.
Do they cancel each other out?
Yeah, that is like the million-dollar question.
I did.
The researchers are still trying to figure out.
Yeah.
Some studies suggest that CBD might actually counteract some of THC's sedating effects.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Like, in a way, it's like CBD might even have, like, an alerting effect, especially at higher doses.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So it's a dance.
It is. It's a dance.
They're doing their little dance.
They are. We're just starting to understand the steps.
Right, and we're just watching. Like, what is happening?
Right, exactly.
So we've covered kind of like the basics of THC and CBD, but how do they actually perform in the real world? Like, how do they actually impact specific sleep disorders?
Right.
Let's start with the one that probably most of us are unfortunately familiar with, at least a little bit, and that is insomnia.
Insomnia. What is going on there?
Yeah, insomnia is such a widespread problem.
It is.
And as you might imagine, the research on cannabinoids and insomnia is full of twists and turns.
Yep.
Some studies show promise, others are a bit of a head scratcher. So
it's complicated.
It's complicated, as most things are.
Right.
With the brain and body.
But are there any promising leads?
Definitely. Yeah. One study found that a synthetic form of THC called nabilone was actually more effective than the commonly prescribed antidepressant amitriptyline for treating insomnia in patients with fibromyalgia.
Wow, that's big.
Yeah.
Because people with fibromyalgia really struggle with sleep a lot of the time. Exactly. Yeah, it's a very common symptom.
Yeah, so that's huge.
Yeah, and again, more research is needed to confirm these findings, of course.
Okay.
But it does suggest that, maybe cannabinoids could be a player in treating insomnia, especially for, specific populations.
Yeah, it's exciting.
It is exciting.
It's promising.
Very much so.
Okay, what about restless leg syndrome?
Restless leg syndrome, yeah.
I've heard anecdotally
that,
marijuana can really help with that.
Right. There are definitely some, interesting anecdotes out there.
Okay.
We're talking about, people with RLS experiencing like almost complete relief from their symptoms after using, recreational marijuana.
That's amazing.
It is pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
But again, these are anecdotal reports. Like, we don't have like the controlled studies and the PSG data, the polysomnography data to really draw any firm conclusion.
Got it.
Yeah.
So promising, maybe?
Promising, but we need more.
We need more.
More data.
Okay.
Yeah, sleep apnea.
Sleep apnea, right?
Yeah, that's another one.
Huge. Yeah, that's a big one for so many people.
That's right.
What about that?
Yeah, so sleep apnea, incredibly common.
Yeah.
It's something that researchers are looking into very closely.
Okay. What do we know so far?
So here's what we know so far.
Okay.
Cannabinoids might actually help stabilize breathing during sleep.
Okay.
And this is because they influence the vagus nerve, which is like the control center for many of our bodily functions, including breathing.
Okay, so they're able to maybe like calm those erratic breathing patterns that are happening with sleep apnea.
Potentially, yes.
Interesting. And what have the studies shown?
So in rat studies.
Okay, rat studies.
Always the rats first,
They're the pioneers.
They are the pioneers. They're out there on the front lines of science.
That's right. We owe them a lot.
We do. So
in rat studies, cannabinoids have actually been shown to like reduce apneas, so those pauses in breathing during sleep.
Okay.
And there's even been a small human trial using dronabinol, which is a synthetic THC medication.
Gotcha.
That showed a reduction in what's called the apnea-hypopnea index, or AHI.
Okay.
Which is like, the key measure of sleep apnea severity.
Gotcha. Okay, so there's evidence there, but
yes.
Are we ditching the CPAP machines yet?
Not so fast.
Okay.
Hold your horses.
Okay.
While these findings are promising, larger human trials are really necessary to confirm these initial findings.
Got it.
And really figure out, the long-term safety and efficacy.
Okay, so it's like we're in the early stages of the mystery novel.
We are. We're gathering clues.
And we've got all these different clues.
Right. But we're not sure how they all fit together yet.
Exactly.
Okay, let's switch gears a little bit to PTSD.
PTSD,
Post-traumatic stress disorder, because that is a condition where sleep is often so severely impacted.
It really is.
Could cannabinoids offer any relief in those situations?
That's a huge area of interest right now.
Okay.
And some studies are actually suggesting that cannabinoids, especially THC, might help reduce the intensity of nightmares and improve sleep quality in people with PTSD.
Really? Yeah. That would be amazing for people because nightmares are just the worst.
They are, yeah.
And if you're having them consistently, that's got to be just erg.
Yeah, very debilitating.
So what's going on there? What have researchers found?
So there have been some small trials, again, looking at nabilone, that synthetic THC medication.
Okay.
And the results have been positive. One study even found that it helped improve sleep and reduce nightmares in patients with treatment-resistant PTSD.
Oh, wow. That's huge.
Yeah.
Treatment-resistant means they've tried other things.
They've tried other things.
And it hasn't worked.
Right.
So that's big.
That's huge. Yeah.
Okay, this is really promising stuff.
Yes.
But as always, there are some caveats.
There are always caveats.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, for example, while some people might find, relief from those PTSD-related nightmares with cannabinoids, there's also the risk of, habituation with chronic use.
Right.
So basically what that means is, you might need higher and higher doses over time to kind of achieve the same effect.
Yeah, like your body gets used to it.
Right.
And it needs more and more to make the same impact. And then if you stop cold turkey,
exactly.
that could make things worse.
Exactly. Which is why, it really highlights the importance of working with a healthcare professional.
Yeah, for sure.
To kind of manage,
dosage
and any potential withdrawal symptoms. So
really important.
Really, really important.
It's not just something to try on your own. Really talk to your doctor about it.
Please talk to your doctor.
Are you ready for some really fascinating cases?
Yeah, hit me. I love a good medical mystery.
Okay.
Lay it on me.
We're going to talk about REM behavior disorder, which is also called RBD.
Okay.
This is a parasomnia where people physically act out their dreams.
Wow.
Which is, you can imagine.
I can only imagine.
It could have some pretty dramatic, even dangerous consequences. It's kind of terrifying.
It's a bit terrifying.
there was this really interesting case series.
Okay.
Which, again, very small study. But researchers observed a reduction in RBD events in patients who were using CBD to treat psychosis related to Parkinson's disease.
Interesting. So they were using it for something completely different.
Totally different. And it seemed to help.
That's wild, yeah.
That is wild, isn't it?
Yeah, it's amazing what we, kind of stumble upon sometimes.
Yeah, but it's such a small sample size.
Right, exactly.
We need more research.
You need more.
To really say,
yeah.
okay, this is a thing.
Exactly.
But still, it's promising.
It is promising, very much so.
Yeah, it's like we stumbled on a hidden passageway, and we gotta go explore it.
We gotta see what's down there.
See what's down there.
Exactly.
What about narcolepsy? I'm curious about that one.
Narcolepsy, yeah, this is a really interesting one when it comes to cannabinoids.
Okay.
It's a sleep disorder that's characterized by, excessive daytime sleepiness.
Right.
And these sudden bouts of muscle weakness called cataplexy.
Okay, yeah.
Sounds very disruptive to your life.
Incredibly disruptive.
Yeah.
So what does the research say?
Yeah.
Well, so far, the research has been a bit of a mixed bag.
Right.
With some studies suggesting that CBD might actually improve sleep.
Okay.
And others indicating that it could actually increase wakefulness.
Wait, what? Really?
I know. It's like, what is going on?
It's the opposite of what you would expect, it seems like.
It does. It does. And it just goes to show, how complex this whole thing is.
Yeah.
And it likely comes down to a lot of things.
Okay.
Variations in the study designs, differences in the dosages used, the individual's unique endocannabinoid system, which
we're still figuring out.
We are still trying to crack that code. But there was one study in particular with rats.
Okay, the rats.
The rats. I know, back to the rats.
Back to the rats.
But this one was really interesting to me.
Okay.
Because, they looked at...
This is the one where they blocked...
the excessive daytime sleepiness.
Yes.
And these rats were specially bred.
They were bred to be deficient in this neuropeptide called orexin.
Yeah.
Which is involved in regulating, wakefulness.
Right.
And they found that CBD was able to actually block that excessive daytime sleepiness.
Wow. I love that study.
Isn't it interesting?
It is, because it just shows how much we don't know.
Right.
How much is still out there to be discovered.
There's so much potential to, unlock these new treatments.
Totally. And to, target very specific
issues.
It's amazing.
It is amazing.
So, okay, we've covered...
a lot of ground.
A lot of ground. Yeah, we've gone from, the basics of what are THC and CBD to, very specific sleep disorders and how they can be impacted. Mm-hmm. But I think it's also important to talk about the other side of the coin.
Right. There's always two sides to every coin.
Yeah, what are some of the downsides?
Yeah. What are the potential risks?
Yeah.
What could go wrong?
Because, and I feel like we've been saying this a lot, we need more research.
We do.
But it's easy to get swept up in the excitement of, oh my gosh, this is a plant, and it could...
It's natural.
Yeah, it's natural, and it's becoming more legal.
Right.
More accessible.
More acceptable.
So it's like, oh, it must be fine.
It must be fine, yeah.
But that's not necessarily the case.
Not necessarily, no. And I think it's like anything else.
Yeah.
Just because it's natural or legal doesn't mean it's completely risk-free.
That's right.
Right. And when it comes to cannabinoids, understanding those risks is really important.
Totally. So let's talk about those potential downsides. What can happen in the short term when someone's using cannabinoids?
Well, in the short term, people can experience things like memory issues.
Okay.
Those little memory glitches, dizziness, trouble concentrating.
Yeah.
Or even feeling more anxious or paranoid.
Okay.
Especially with higher doses of THC.
Oh, wow. So not exactly the, relaxing sleep-promoting effects that people might be hoping for.
Exactly. And in some cases, those higher doses of THC can even lead to, temporary psychosis, which...
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's not
good.
Not something to mess around with. So.
No. And what about long-term?
Yeah, so long-term is where things get a little bit trickier because,
right.
that data is still being gathered.
Yeah.
But one thing that is definitely concerning is the potential for cognitive impairment.
Okay.
With chronic use, especially in adolescents, whose brains are still developing.
Yeah, that's scary, right?
It is, and that's something that...
For parents.
Yeah, for parents.
And kids to be really aware of.
Exactly. And then there's also, the risk of potentially making existing mood disorders or psychotic disorders worse.
Okay.
And we can't forget about like the physical health risks too.
Right.
Like potential respiratory problems from, smoking cannabis. So.
Right, because there are different ways to,
Right. They're
to beauty,
suing.
and some of them are safer than others.
Exactly. So it really comes down to like weighing the potential benefits against those very real risks, which is something you should always do in consultation with a healthcare professional, right?
Always talk to your doctor.
Please, yes, because they can help you, really weigh those pros and cons.
Right.
Based on your individual health history, any medications you're taking,
right.
What works for one person
totally
might not work for another, especially when it comes to something as individual as sleep.
Yeah, it's about finding that right puzzle piece.
Exactly.
That fits for you.
Love that. Yeah, find that perfect fit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier, we were talking about how the American Academy of Sleep Medicine,
yes,
or AASM, they actually don't recommend routinely using medical cannabis for obstructive sleep apnea.
Right.
Which kind of surprised me, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, and it surprised me too, and I think it really just speaks to how rigorous they are, which is a good thing. But
it's good.
They've basically stated that there's just not enough solid evidence yet to recommend cannabis as like a go-to treatment for OSA. So
they're not jumping the gun.
Not jumping the gun.
They want to see
the data.
More research.
Yeah, which hopefully
is happening.
The good news is research is happening.
It's exploding.
It is, which is exciting.
It is exciting.
But I think it also, means that we as like consumers of this information need to be, savvy, exactly.
Yeah.
Don't believe everything you read online.
Yeah.
Talk to your doctor, read those reputable sources. Be your own advocate.
100%. Advocate for your own health, know what's going on.
Exactly.
Okay. So where do we go from here? Like, what is next for cannabinoids and sleep research? Like, what are you most excited to see unfold in the coming years?
I'm really interested to see what these, ongoing clinical trials uncover about different cannabinoids and their effectiveness for things like, insomnia, sleep apnea.
Right.
Even some of those, less common sleep disorders we talked about, so...
It feels like we're
on the edge.
On the edge of something.
With something big here.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
It's very exciting. And the more we learn, the more we realize...
The less we know.
The less we actually know, right?
Right.
Which is always kind of how it is with science.
It is.
Right. But what I'm particularly curious about is this idea of personalized cannabinoid therapy.
Okay, for sleep, tell me more. That sounds very cool.
Right. Imagine if we could use things like, genetic testing or biomarkers to actually figure out which cannabinoids at what doses would most benefit an individual's sleep needs.
That's amazing.
Right. Or even being able to identify people who might be more likely to experience negative side effects.
Okay.
So we could, avoid those altogether.
So smart. No more trial and error.
Exactly. Right. No more okay, well, let's just try this and see what happens.
Right. Exactly.
It's no, we know based on your biology.
This is what's going to work best for you.
Exactly. This is for you.
Wow.
And then that leads me to another area that I'm particularly interested in, which is this idea of targeting specific sleep stages.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
With cannabinoids.
Okay. Break that down for us.
So we know that, different cannabinoids seem to impact, sleep stages in different ways, right? What if we could use that knowledge to develop therapies that say, help you fall asleep faster without sacrificing deep sleep.
Okay.
Or maybe even target REM sleep to reduce nightmares,
Okay, my mind is blown right now.
It's pretty amazing stuff.
This is
Yeah, and it really just shows that we're
we're just at the beginning.
We're just at the very beginning of really understanding.
Yeah, it's we're peeling back.
We're peeling back the layers of the onion.
The layers.
And there's just going to be more and more.
So much more to learn.
Exactly.
This is so cool. Okay.
It is cool. It's very, very cool.
Well, on that note of excitement and anticipation.
Yes.
It looks like we've reached the end of our deep dive.
This has been a really fascinating conversation.
It has.
I've really enjoyed digging into this with you.
Me too. This has been super fun. I've learned a lot. Thank you to our listeners for, coming along on this journey with us into the world of cannabinoids and sleep.
Yes, thank you so much for listening.
We hope you learned some interesting stuff today. And as always, please, talk to your doctor.
Talk to your doctor.
Before making any changes to your, sleep routine.
Exactly.
Your health regimen, anything.
Yes.
They're your best resource.
Absolutely.
Okay. Until next time, sweet dreams, everyone.
Sweet dreams.